Guys, today I want to talk about the coin that has been performing very well this cycle and that I think has the potential to actually continue doing so, and that is HBAR. So HBAR is a coin that I said I would make a video on, and a lot of you guys wanted me to make a video on it, so that is what we are going to do today. So HBAR is actually the native coin of the Hedera blockchain, and in this video, I will explain what exactly it is that makes Hedera stand out from so many other chains and why I think that HBAR could still actually, even though it's been going crazy recently, it could still be undervalued as we enter into what a lot of people are expecting to be a new era of crypto under Trump's more friendly crypto administration. Any Hedera Hashgraph tokens myself? Well, I don't actually hold any Hedera Hashgraph tokens right now, but I do have exposure to it because I am trading it. Specifically, I am trading it with a custom-built trading strategy that makes sure I make money when the price goes up, but also helps me get out in time before we see massive drops in the bear market, which is going to happen at some point. So right now, it is actually giving me about 2,000% in yearly profit, which fluctuates a bit up and down depending on the price. It uses the volatility to create additional profits instead of simply holding. I will talk more about that later on, and I will also explain how you can use the same strategy yourself if you want to do so. But yes, I do have exposure to HBAR because of that. So the Hedera chain went live in 2018, and since then, HBAR has grown to become one of the top 20 coins by market cap. But in spite of that, it is actually relatively under the radar compared to a lot of other coins of similar size. Especially within the more crypto native communities, you will see a lot more people talking about what is happening with Avalanche, Sui, Aptos, or there's even more buzz around Litecoin in general. So why is that? This may sound like a negative thing for Hedera at first, but it is actually as they have the lowest energy use per transaction and go even further to offset the small amount of energy they do use by actually purchasing carbon credits. Being extremely fast and cheap to use in particular as well is doing really strong. They are really having a strong kind of niche in the market here, being ISO 20222 compliant. It always feels weird to say that entire string. But anyway, the reason why HBAR and similar coins like XRP and XLM have done so well since Trump won the election is actually because we all knew that he will create a much friendlier environment for crypto under his administration. In the past, banks and other institutions have been actively discouraged from integrating or working with crypto companies, but now the road ahead is clear and crypto adoption is even being encouraged. The first day after Trump took office, the SEC, which has been pretty much the biggest enemy and attacker of the crypto industry, saw a new crypto-friendly leader appointed and then announced SEC Crypto 2.0 as a fresh start, as well as the formation of a clear regulatory framework for crypto, which is being led by one of the most crypto-friendly regulators. In other words, the biggest institutions in the US are now going to be free to work with tech like Hedera and take advantage of what it offers. Hedera has a head start here because they already have partnered with some big name companies, and that serves as a kind of a green flag to other companies that now want to take advantage of crypto. For example, if a bank is looking for a cheaper way to process transactions and is trying to decide which chain to use, the one that is already working with banks they know of, as well as companies like Google, is going to stand out as a safer option than some other chains that don't have big name partners. With that said, let's take a look at some of the different use cases that Hedera can be utilized for to help understand why it has a lot of potential for growth. Starting here, they actually provide some pre-made solutions for asset tokenization, stablecoins, and carbon markets. Tokenization alone is expected to be worth many trillions of dollars over the next 5 to 10 years and is one of the use cases that is attractive to the biggest TradFi institutions. Hedera can also be used for data integrity and AI, which are two more sectors that are extremely hot right now and only expected to see even more demand because as AI continues to evolve and advance, it requires and creates more and more data. Some of the other use cases here are decentralized identity systems, DeFi, payments, consumer loyalty, decentralized event logs, and much more. Now that we have covered the fundamentals, let's take a look at a few different charts and do a bit of a speculation as to what H-bar may be worth in the future or in this cycle. Actually, before we look at the charts, let me talk for a moment about how I am trading H-bar myself, because this is something that I said at the beginning of the video, but I am actually using a custom-made trading strategy. So like I said, my strategy is currently yielding me about 2000% in annualized profits on H-bar, and I expect this to actually increase as the price is going to go up, in my opinion, not financial advice, but I think that H-bar is going to continue towards the upside. But I'm actually sharing my trading strategies as well, and if you want to use them, all you need to do is go to the description of this video, sign up to Pionex first, claim the deposit bonuses, and then with this link right here, you can start up the strategy for yourself. If you want to know more about my strategies and how I intend on making millions of dollars using them in this cycle, then make sure to watch this video right here. And you can also use this for over 180 different coins. So check out the links in the description for that in order to understand how they all work in more detail also. But with that said, let's take a look at the H-bar chart starting out on the weekly time frame. The first thing that you will probably notice is that H-bar has not entered price discovery yet for this cycle. This is actually a good thing if you don't own any yet, because when a coin breaks its old all-time high and enters into price discovery, that can actually be when some of the craziest moves does happen. So just as a quick example, if we take a look at the Bitcoin chart, you can see that it had its big uptrend, and then when we got to around where the last cycle topped out, we had this big consolidation range before we finally broke through and saw another massive move up. And of course, these moves can be even crazier for altcoins as they are much smaller than Bitcoin in terms of market cap. The rally for H-bar that started in November didn't quite get to the old all-time high, which you can decide this either by this wick here or by the candle close here for that, but you can decide whichever you want. But it did get close and then has now seen around a month and a half of consolidation after its initial minus 40% correction. If we zoom in a bit to the daily chart, you can see that it has really been ranging back and forth between 25 cents to 33 cents, and then has recently tried to start pushing higher again. This back and forth volatility here is the perfect condition for the trading strategies I'm using, because each of these moves up and down results in more profits, which can be compounded back into the position if you choose to do so. This is even better when you consider the alternative, that you are either just holding spot or a leveraged position, and you have to watch this back and forth and keep having your conviction tested each time rather than being able to just sit back and profit from it over time. For now, what we would really want to see is for these lows to hold if they're tested again, as a breakdown from these would really kill the momentum, at least in the short term. The best case scenario would be for this area of resistance here to be solidly flipped into support and then serve as fuel for the next move higher, which would be to test the all-time high. And then once that is broken, we can enter price discovery, and that is when the fun really begins. Once H-bar is in price discovery, of course, there are no historical resistance levels above to use as potential targets to sell at. So let's take a moment to consider a couple situations and what valuations H-bar could hit if they do play out. Starting out, let's just be extremely bullish for now and imagine the best possible scenario. This would be a world in which we see a massive adoption of crypto, Bitcoin is being accumulated by countries, and businesses are all building on blockchains, and that Hedera is one of those chosen base layers. As a frame of reference, during the last bull market, Ethereum was of course the top layer one, and Ethereum hit an all-time high market cap of $660 billion. However, that was the valuation of a chain still trying to scale at the time when mass adoption seemed much less likely than it does now. And under an anti-crypto administration in the US was also the case back then. Now everything has changed. Hedera is already actually scalable, and in our most bullish scenario, when everything is running on blockchains, it makes sense that a top chain like Hedera would be worth more than Ethereum was during the previous bull market, right? So I think that makes perfect sense. So to use a nice round number, let's say a $1 trillion, that would be between a 75x to 80x depending on when it happened, as the supply of H-bar increased gradually over time. If you want to be a bit more realistic, then we could consider a scenario in which we see the bull market continue, H-bar continues to outperform, and ISO 20222 compliant projects like Hedera see significant new partnerships and integrations under the more crypto-friendly regulatory environment. Since November, H-bar has outperformed Bitcoin by 4 to 5x, and this has been before we see any major downtrend for Bitcoin dominance, which is typically later on in the cycle at a time when altcoins tend to see the craziest gains. With all of these factors in mind, if you think Bitcoin has another 2 to 3x in it for this cycle, which I believe personally, then H-bar could have another 8 to 15x or even more if it continues outperforming at its current rate or better. For reference, an 8x would put H-bar at a bit more than $2.6 per coin, while a 15x would put it at nearly $5. So, with that said, I want to know what you all think about Hedera. Let me know down in the comment section if you're bullish on H-bar and what your targets are.